Keanu Reeves adjusted his grip on the steering wheel as his black Porsche rolled to a smooth stop at a red light. The night air was crisp, Los Angeles bathed in a soft golden glow under the flickering streetlights. It had been a long day, another event, another speech, another moment where he played the role the world expected of him. But in this quiet moment, alone in his car, he wasn't a superstar. He was just a man trying to find a moment of peace. And then he saw it. A car door swung open just a few feet ahead. A man stepped out, dressed in dark jeans and a hoodie, his face obscured by the dim light. Keanu barely paid attention. People got out of their cars all the time. But what happened next made his grip tighten on the wheel. The man turned to the back seat, reached in, and yanked something out. Something small, alive. A dog. Keanu watched, his breath stilling as the man dropped the dog onto the sidewalk like a discarded piece of trash. No hesitation, no second glance. He simply slammed the car door shut, walked back to the driver's side, and within seconds, his tires screeched against the asphalt, vanishing into the night. The dog didn't move. Keanu blinked, his heartbeat quickening. He expected the dog to run after the car, to bark, to cry, but it just stood there, frozen, not confused, not scared, just still. The traffic light turned green. A horn blared behind him. Keanu tightened his jaw. He had two choices: drive away or stop. For a second, his foot hovered over the gas pedal. Maybe the dog belonged to someone. Maybe it would find its way home. Then he looked at the rearview mirror. The dog was staring directly at him. Not begging, not hopeful, just empty. A quiet curse slipped from Keanu's lips, and in one swift motion, he pulled the car to the side of the road. Keanu killed the engine and sat there for a moment, his fingers still gripping the wheel. His pulse had quickened, but he wasn't sure why. It was just a dog, a stray. 1,000 stories like this happened every day in a city like Los Angeles. And yet, something about this wasn't right. He exhaled slowly, his breath fogging up the windshield for a split second before fading into the night. Through the dim glow of the streetlights, he could see the dog more clearly now. Small, thin, its fur matted with dirt. It didn't pace, didn't bark, didn't even shiver. It just stood there, staring at the ground like it had already accepted its fate. Keanu pushed open the door, the rush of cool air hitting his face as he stepped out onto the pavement. The world around him was still moving, cars humming past, distant laughter from a bar down the street, a flickering neon sign buzzing somewhere nearby. But here, in this tiny pocket of the world, time felt frozen. He took slow, measured steps toward the dog. "Hey, buddy," he said softly. His voice was calm, careful, the same way he'd talk to a skittish horse on a movie set. "You okay?" No response, not even a flick of the ear. Keanu crouched down, lowering himself to the dog's level. Up close, he could see it better. The ribs pressing against its thin frame, the patches of missing fur, and then something else, scars, old ones, faint but unmistakable. Keanu's stomach twisted. Someone had hurt this dog before. His jaw tightened as he slowly extended a hand, palm up, a peace offering. The dog didn't move, didn't sniff his fingers, didn't even flinch. It was as if it no longer expected kindness. Keanu clenched his fist, pulling his hand back. His eyes flickered to the spot where the car had been, then back to the dog. Who would abandon a dog like this? And more importantly, why did it feel like this wasn't just a random act? Keanu sat back on his heels, studying the dog in silence. It was too still, too quiet, like it had been abandoned so many times that it no longer reacted. He had seen pain before, in people, in animals, in himself. But this was different. His fingers curled against his palm. Who does this? Who looks into the eyes of a living creature and decides it doesn't matter? He exhaled through his nose, forcing the anger down. This wasn't about him. This was about the dog. Keanu glanced around. The sidewalk was empty. No one had noticed. No one cared. Except him. He reached for his jacket, slipping it off his shoulders and carefully draping it over the dog's back. It didn't flinch. Didn't react at all. The weight of the fabric settled over its thin frame, but the dog remained frozen, as if waiting for something, punishment maybe, or worse. Keanu swallowed hard. How many times had this dog been left behind? Slowly he shifted closer. "All right, buddy," he murmured. "Let's get you out of here." Still no reaction. Keanu hesitated, then gently slid his arm under the dog's frail body. The moment his fingers brushed against its ribs, he felt it. A shudder. Not from the cold, from fear. His heart clenched. He hadn't grabbed roughly, hadn't forced anything. But still, the dog tensed beneath his touch like it was waiting for something bad to happen. And that's when he saw it. A collar, old, worn. The metal tag dangling from it was scratched, the letters almost completely erased, almost like someone had deliberately tried to wipe away its past. Keanu's jaw tightened. This wasn't just abandonment. This was something else. Keanu ran his fingers over the collar, his breath slowing as he processed what he was seeing. The tag had once carried a name. Someone had given this dog an identity, a place in the world. But now it was nothing more than scratched metal. Who does that? Not just abandoning an animal, but erasing its existence. His grip on the collar tightened before he forced himself to let go. Anger wouldn't help right now. The dog remained still in his arms, not struggling, not resisting. It was like it had already given up, like no matter what happened next, it wouldn't fight back. Keanu swallowed hard and stood up, holding the dog carefully against his chest. He could feel its ribs beneath its thin fur, the way its breath came in shallow, quiet waves. "Let's get you somewhere safe, he murmured. He turned toward his car, walking slowly, making sure the dog wasn't uncomfortable. As he reached the passenger side, he gently lowered it onto the seat, his jacket still wrapped around its frail body. The dog barely moved, just lay there, staring at nothing. Keanu exhaled, running a hand through his hair before closing the door. Sliding into the driver's seat, he started the car, but before shifting into drive, he paused. His eyes flickered to the rearview mirror. The dog wasn't sleeping, wasn't tense either. It was just there, existing. Keanu clenched his jaw and looked away. He didn't know why, but something about this felt wrong, like this wasn't over. Keanu's hands gripped the steering wheel, but he didn't press the gas. The city moved around him, cars passing, people walking, life continuing as if nothing had happened. But something about this moment felt unfinished. His eyes flickered back to the dog. It still hadn't moved, still hadn't made a sound, just staring ahead, lost in whatever world existed inside its mind. Keanu let out a slow breath and reached for his phone. He scrolled through his contacts, hesitated, then tapped a name. The line rang twice before a deep voice answered. "Keanu, what's up?" "I need a favor." A pause. "You never call for favors." Keanu's jaw tightened. "It's about a dog." Another silence, then a soft chuckle. "Only you, man." "All right, where are you?" Keanu gave him the location. Just look into something for me. The dog had a collar, but the name's been scratched off, like someone wanted to erase it." That got his friend's attention. "That's not normal." "No," Keanu said, glancing at the dog again. "It's not." "All right, I'll make some calls, see if anything comes up." Keanu nodded, ending the call before shifting the car into gear. Something told him he wasn't just rescuing a stray. Something bigger was happening, and he was about to find out what. Keanu drove in silence. The hum of the engine, the only sound between him and the dog, curled up in the passenger seat. He stole a quick glance. It hadn't moved, its breathing slow, almost too quiet. Something about this didn't sit right. He had rescued stray dogs before, but this one felt different. The erased tag, the scars, the way it didn't react to kindness. Someone had gone to great lengths to make sure this dog disappeared. His phone buzzed. He pressed a button on the steering wheel. "Yeah? It's me?" His friend's voice came through the speakers. "I made some calls. That dog, it's not just a stray." Keanu's grip tightened on the wheel. "Go on." A pause. "There's been a pattern. Dogs disappearing from shelters. Some found abandoned with their tags scratched off. No one's been able to connect the dots, but I think you just did." Keanu's stomach twisted. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying that whoever dumped that dog wasn't just some heartless owner. It's bigger than that. And if they went through the trouble of erasing its identity, there's a reason." Keanu's jaw clenched. He looked at the dog again, small, fragile, but now carrying the weight of something much larger than he had expected. Then his friend spoke again, his voice lower this time. "You might not be the only one looking for it." Keanu's eyes darkened. His gut had been right. This wasn't over. It was just the beginning.